At 67, Ellen DeGeneres should be enjoying the peace of a well-earned retirement, the laughter of fans still echoing from 2 decades on daytime television, the comfort of family, and the security of a legacy cemented in entertainment history. But instead, the story of Ellen today is far more complicated and far more heartbreaking. For years, she was celebrated as the Queen of Kindness, a trailblazer who broke barriers in comedy and became one of the most influential television hosts in the world. Her infectious laugh and lighthearted dance routines made her a household name. To millions, she was the person who reminded us to be kind. But behind the polished image and carefully crafted stage presence, shadows were forming. When allegations of a toxic work environment on her show exploded in 2020, the image of America's kindest host began to shatter. What followed was a storm of criticism, career collapse, and the painful unraveling of a reputation she had built over decades. And just as she stepped away from the spotlight, a wave of health challenges, from osteoporosis to OCD and ADHD, struck at the very foundation of her daily life. Now, at 67, Ellen faces not only the weight of a tarnished legacy, but also the private battles that no amount of fame or fortune can shield her from. How did the woman who once seemed untouchable end up here? And what does her future look like in the twilight of her career? Long before Ellen became one of the most recognizable faces in television, she was just a sharp-witted stand-up comic from Louisiana, hustling her way through small clubs and smoky venues. Her humor was different, clean, observational, and tinged with a warmth that made audiences feel like they were laughing with her, not at anyone else. By the mid-1980s, she had worked her way onto late-night television, making appearances with legends like Johnny Carson and David Letterman. Carson's rare gesture of inviting her over to the couch signaled to the world that a star had arrived. In the 1990s, Ellen took an even bolder leap. She became the star of her own sitcom, Ellen, which reached a cultural climax in 1997 when her character came out as gay, mirroring her own life. It was a groundbreaking television moment, one that sparked both celebration and controversy, but it cemented Ellen as more than just a comedian. She was a pioneer, pushing visibility forward in ways that few mainstream stars dared at the time. After setbacks in Hollywood, Ellen reinvented herself in 2003 with The Ellen DeGeneres Show. What started as another talk show quickly grew into a cultural juggernaut. Her mix of celebrity interviews, heartfelt surprises, viral games, and of course her signature dancing created a formula that millions adored. For nearly 20 years, Ellen wasn't just a host. She was a daily comfort, a reminder to be kind in a world that often felt anything but. Her influence stretched far beyond the TV screen. She hosted the Oscars, voiced Dory in Finding Nemo, launched her own production company, and even became a fashion brand entrepreneur. The accolades piled up: Emmy Awards, global recognition, and a fortune that placed her among the wealthiest entertainers in Hollywood. From the outside, Ellen DeGeneres seemed unstoppable. But even at her peak, the cracks in the image of constant kindness were beginning to show. If you'd like to hear the full story behind Ellen's rise and fall, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters. For nearly 2 decades, Ellen's brand rested on one simple phrase: be kind. It became her mantra, her identity, the moral anchor of her show. But in 2020, that image unraveled in a way no one saw coming. Reports began to surface from former employees, painting a picture of the Ellen DeGeneres Show that was far from the cheerful, supportive space audiences imagined. Instead, allegations described a toxic workplace, with claims of intimidation, fear, and staff who felt silenced. The headlines spread like wildfire. Social media turned ruthless, with the once beloved Queen of Kindness suddenly recast as a hypocrite. Memes, late-night jokes, and public criticism swirled, damaging a reputation Ellen had spent decades building. While Ellen herself denied being directly responsible for the alleged culture, the fallout was swift. Warner Media launched an internal investigation, high-level producers were dismissed, and Ellen issued a public apology on air. But for many, the apology felt too late. The damage was done. Ratings plummeted. Between 2019 and 2021, the show lost more than 1 million viewers, a staggering collapse for a program that once dominated daytime television. The audience who once tuned in for comfort and light-hearted humor suddenly felt disconnected. If she's not who she says she is, many asked, then who is Ellen really? Even fellow celebrities weighed in. Some defended her, saying she had been unfairly targeted by cancel culture. Others shared their own stories of cold interactions and sharp behavior off-camera, fueling the fire. What made it worse was how much the scandal contrasted with her personal brand. For someone who had built an empire on kindness, the accusations felt like betrayal. By 2021, whispers of cancellation became louder, and Ellen eventually announced that the 19th season of her talk show would be the last. She tried to frame it as her decision, but insiders suggested the combination of dwindling ratings and tarnished reputation left little choice. It was the end of an era, but not the kind of farewell she had envisioned. Instead of going out on a high note, Ellen's career wound down under the shadow of controversy. For a woman who had once conquered Hollywood by breaking barriers, the sudden collapse of her public image was devastating. And the blow didn't just end a show, it reshaped how the world would remember her. As if the collapse of her reputation wasn't enough, Ellen soon faced another cruel reality: her health. In recent years, she's revealed a series of diagnoses that have reshaped her daily life. Osteoporosis, a condition that weakens bones, has made even simple movements risky. For someone who was once known for jumping up to dance with her audience every afternoon, the thought of fragile bones is a painful reminder of how much time has passed. Alongside that came the revelations of OCD and ADHD, two conditions that affect not just physical energy, but focus, mood, and mental balance. Ellen admitted that she had long battled with obsessive habits and the restless energy of ADHD, but opening up about it so late in life was both shocking and oddly humanizing. Behind the perfect smile and sharp wit was a woman grappling with the same struggles millions quietly endure. Privately, the combination of health issues and public backlash took a toll. Sources close to her described her as withdrawn, spending much of her time at home with her wife, Portia de Rossi. Away from the spotlight, Ellen was no longer the effortless entertainer who thrived on applause. She was someone forced to face vulnerability without the shield of fame. And yet, even in these moments, Ellen tried to maintain some humor. During her comedy special For Your Approval, she joked about being cancelled and about aging. But behind the laughs, there was a rawness. For the first time, she wasn't just playing the upbeat talk show host. She was exposing her wounds, letting the world see the cracks. At 67, Ellen's greatest challenge isn't just protecting her legacy, but navigating life itself, with a body and mind that no longer allow her to move through the world as freely as before. And as these struggles deepened, another life-changing decision soon followed, leaving behind not just Hollywood, but America itself. After nearly 2 decades of daytime dominance, Ellen's departure from television in 2022 was supposed to mark a graceful exit. Instead, it felt more like a retreat. Once a fixture in American living rooms, she suddenly vanished from the spotlight, leaving behind an audience that had grown accustomed to her daily presence. The end of the Ellen DeGeneres show didn't just close a chapter in television history, it left a void in her own life. Ellen and Portia de Rossi, her wife since 2008, began spending less time in Los Angeles and more in the quiet landscapes of the Cotswolds in England. For some, the move was interpreted as a chance to escape the relentless glare of Hollywood and the bruising headlines that had shadowed her. In the rolling English countryside, Ellen found a different kind of rhythm: private walks, home renovations, and a quiet life far removed from the stage lights. Tabloids described their new home as a sanctuary, filled with gardens and open space, the exact opposite of the chaos she had left behind in California. In interviews, Ellen admitted that she enjoyed being anonymous, able to shop or take a walk without being stopped every few minutes. For someone who had lived under a microscope for decades, the simplicity of ordinary life was a relief. Still, the decision sparked endless speculation. Was it a permanent move? Was Ellen retreating for good? Or was she quietly regrouping for another act in her career? Some believed she was simply burned out, choosing to focus on her marriage and personal health. Others insisted the move was motivated by deeper disillusionment with American culture and the backlash she endured. Portia's role in this chapter cannot be overlooked. Throughout the controversies, she stood by Ellen, defending her publicly and encouraging her privately. Friends close to the couple say Portia was the steady anchor that kept Ellen from collapsing completely under the weight of criticism. Their bond, once dismissed as another Hollywood marriage, has become the center of Ellen's new life. But even abroad, the spotlight never fully dimmed. Rumors followed them across the Atlantic, with reports of new projects, comeback attempts, and even gossip about tension in the relationship. In 2024, Ellen released her Netflix comedy special For Your Approval, a mix of self-deprecating humor and candid reflections about her so-called cancellation. It was both a confession and a defense, her way of reclaiming the story. And yet for many fans, watching Ellen in this subdued, semi-retired form was bittersweet. The woman who once thrived on applause now seemed content with silence. She was still Ellen, sharp, witty, and resilient, but she was no longer untouchable. Even in semi-retirement, Ellen hasn't escaped the spotlight or the controversies that seem to follow her. In recent months, headlines once again dragged her name into the public arena, this time not for television drama but for something far more ordinary, a car accident. A lawsuit alleged that Ellen ran a stop sign in California and T-boned another vehicle. Though the case is still unfolding, the story reignited debates about her character. For critics, it was another example of carelessness. For fans, it was a painful reminder that Ellen's name now often surfaces in the news for the wrong reasons. At the same time, rumors continue to swirl about whether Ellen is plotting a bigger comeback. Whispers of new TV projects or comedy tours occasionally surface online, but each time they fade without confirmation. Some believe she's testing the waters cautiously, knowing that one misstep could erase whatever goodwill remains. Others argue she's finished with the spotlight entirely, content to live privately with Portia and let her legacy rest where it is. But the speculation reflects something bigger. The public isn't ready to let go of Ellen. Even after her fall from grace, people remain curious about what she'll do next. Every public appearance sparks chatter: how she looks, how she acts, whether she seems different. For someone who built an empire on being relatable, that scrutiny is both ironic and cruel. The harshest part of these recent years isn't the rumors themselves, but the way they've reframed Ellen's identity. Once a symbol of kindness, she is now a polarizing figure, caught between admiration for her groundbreaking career and suspicion fueled by controversy. At 67, she faces the reality that her legacy may always be debated, and that the life she once knew can never fully return. When people look back at Ellen DeGeneres, her story won't be defined by a single controversy, nor by the last chapter of her career. For 2 decades, she brought laughter into millions of homes. She was the woman who danced down the aisles, surprised everyday people with life-changing gifts, and made celebrities feel more human on her couch. She gave a platform to voices that might not otherwise have been heard, and in 1997, her coming-out moment on television was a cultural earthquake that changed entertainment forever. Her achievements are undeniable. She won more than 60 Daytime Emmy Awards, hosted the Academy Awards, voiced an iconic Disney character, and built a production empire that shaped modern television. She used her platform to promote kindness, generosity, and inclusivity, even if in the end, the image of perfection proved impossible to sustain. But Ellen's legacy is complicated, and perhaps that's the most human part of it. She is a reminder that even trailblazers are flawed, and that the gap between public image and private reality can be enormous. To some, she will always be the groundbreaking comedian who broke barriers. To others, she will forever carry the shadow of the controversies that ended her talk show. In recent years, Ellen herself has acknowledged these contradictions. Through stand-up and interviews, she's admitted her mistakes, wrestled with the cancel culture label, and tried to reconcile the image of the person she once was with the reality of who she is now. Whether the world accepts that or not, her influence remains woven into the fabric of pop culture. Ultimately, Ellen's legacy is both inspiring and tragic. Inspiring, because she showed what courage and humor can achieve. Tragic, because her story proves how quickly a pedestal can crumble, and how hard it is to rebuild once trust is broken. At 67, Ellen DeGeneres' story is not the fairy tale many once believed it to be. For years, she stood as a beacon of laughter, kindness, and courage, breaking barriers in comedy, changing television, and reminding millions to hold on to joy. But as her career wound down, the shadows grew longer: controversies, health struggles, and the painful realization that even the brightest legacies can be questioned. And yet, within that tragedy lies a truth worth remembering. Ellen's journey shows us that fame does not erase human flaws, nor does it guarantee peace. She stumbled, she faltered, and she faced the harshest glare of public judgment. But she also endured, opening up about her battles and refusing to let the darkest chapters completely define her. Her life is now quieter, far removed from the dazzling stages where she once thrived. But the mark she left on entertainment and on the millions who laughed with her cannot be erased. Ellen DeGeneres' story is one of triumph and heartbreak, resilience and regret, a reminder that behind every public image is a private struggle we may never fully understand. Her legacy is complicated, but it is also undeniably powerful. Which part of Ellen's journey do you think defines her most? The laughter she gave the world, or the struggles she faced when the spotlight dimmed? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of legends like this one.